Last time we downloaded a spreadsheet from schooldigger.com. That was the website I was using to get data on schools for the uh, entire United States. I could go to other sources, but I found that one to be consistently robust and has a very similar format for all states. So what I have here and what you would have and what state you're looking at would be very similar. I'm looking at Oregon. I have moved fields over into column A and column B that I want to plot in a chart. Column A being free and reduced meal percentage of kids in schools, and B, the y-axis, is going to be average scores that those kids or those schools generated. It's important to know that column A is always thought by Excel to be the default X values. So, and the Y is column B. You could put data into column C as well if you're going to make a three-dimensional chart, which I'm not going to do here. In either event, the first thing I like to do is make sure that after I've selected these two fields, make sure the data is numerical. And I do that by doing a right-click, format cells. I click numerical right here. Sometimes it's highlighted as general. It's a mix of text and other things. But I click numerical. I make sure it has the right number of characters after the decimals, 0 to 1 or 2, and say OK. So now if I sort it, if I plot it, Excel does not have trouble because it's all numbers. I sometimes sort it by school district too, so that I know if I'm going to plot or going to look at a particular school district, I select, I can find that district's schools very quickly. So I select the whole data sheet, I go up to data, sort, and I have highlighted my list has headers, so I can pick one of those headers, and in this case I'll sort by district, and bingo, it all comes out by district. And you can see right here is the district starting with A's going down to, Beaverton, Salem, all those. It goes through the complete set of Oregon schools. But let's go back to plotting. I'm going to make this chart now from columns A and B, and I just select those two columns. A lot of data here, like 1,300 different schools in the state. Some states have even more than that. I'm going to just select some of them and then go down to the bottom, drag my elevator down here to the bottom, and go over to the B column, the bottom right corner that I'm trying to select. Hold down the shift key and click it, and it selects that whole double column A and B. Now that I've selected the fields, X axis and Y axis, I can go up to chart and use the Excel 2011 for a Mac chart feature. I click it and it gives me options. I want this one without lines between my various data points. You could pick others, but that's what I found most valuable. And I get this dummy chart all of a sudden. It's embedded inside of your data spreadsheet, and that doesn't do you much good. You could print it, you can manipulate it, but it's easiest to right click on it and to say move chart. And I'll call it 2D, Oregon schools. And when I click OK, it creates a new tab down here called 2D Oregon schools, and it's got its own page. There's a few things that I don't like, so I'm going to have to fix them. First off, it doesn't have a least squares line through it. They haven't averaged all these data points, and to do that it used to be really tough to do. This is simple. You just click this little box that has a line through it, and it changes the whole layout of the chart, and it puts in a least or best fit line through it. And you can see there's a legend over here. I don't really need that. It's kind of occupying real estate. So I click one of the fields and I delete it. Then I click the other field and delete it. It opens up the chart, spreads it across the page so I can read it a little bit better. The axes right now are okay. This says 200, and that's the maximum score that you could get, and 100% is the maximum. If you need to change those, you do that on the next tab over. It says Chart Layout. And under Chart Layout, first I can add a title. It has no title on this chart right now, and I add one. It puts in a dummy title. And I'll put in all Oregon schools. I always like to add more detail because there are educators that want to know where you got your data. What is it you're plotting? And I would say that this is, to begin with, combined reading, I'll just put R, and math. They call it an Oaks test. I don't know what Oaks stands for, but the educators would. Oaks, combined reading and math Oaks for the 4th, the 8th, and 10th grades. And these are average scores. So I've got combined average reading and math Oaks for the 4th, 8th. And that's just my y-axis. On the x-axis, I'm going to have percent eligible for, and you can clean this up, free and reduced meal. There are folks that absolutely want to know what this data is, and so I try to find a way to maybe reduce the size and fit it all in there. Sometimes it's a little messy to read, but it solves a lot of quick questions, if you will. And then I identify the two different axes here. This is combined test scores. And you can add more to that or less. It's up to you. Correct spelling, all that stuff. I'll do that later. And this is percent free and reduced meal. If I want to change these, like I've got 200.0, well, it's only 200. So again, you go up here and you'll find something called axis. And you can look at the vertical axis, the one I was just messing with. Go to the bottom, it says, other options, and I can change all kinds of things with that. How big it is, the fill, all kinds of different. Let me go back and do that again. Here's the horizontal axis, axis title options. I'm in axis titles. What I need to do is go over here to the axis itself. They look just the same. And I'm going to go down here to axis options, and that's what I was looking for. Right here it says number, and I can first uncheck the link to the source data, and then I can manipulate this down to 0, where there's nothing after the decimal place. And down here on the percents, it now looks like a percent. There's no decimal point after, say, 100 or after 90. I can then do the same thing under axis, under the vertical axis, axis options, unlink the data, make it 0, and I get rid of the point 200.0, 0.1, whatever. I'm going to save it right here just to be careful. I may lose it on the next couple steps. The next one is to change the data point color. What you see here is a blue little diamonds. The diamonds are okay, but I don't like the blue is a little heavy, and I want to be able to see more of that center section that is kind of has a lot of schools with the same data points. So I just click any one of the items, and this is, you got to be careful. At first I click out here outside, so I deselect the chart. Then I just go inside and click one data point item, and it ends up selecting a whole bunch of them, actually all of them. And when I've selected one, I can then do a right click, and it says select data, or it says format data. In this case, I'm going to format the data series. And one of the choices is marker fill, and it's an automatic. That is, Excel will use this blue diamond as a default. I can change that to a different color. I can say no fill, and in fact, no fill looks pretty good because, as you can see, I can start seeing the heavy data points in the middle there. So I'm going to leave it at that. I can also change the size or what they actually are. They're diamonds, and they're at 9, a size of 9. And I think I'll leave that for right now. So that looks much better. Again, I'm going to save it because next week I'm thinking of visiting one of the schools, hypothetically, one of the school districts. And it would be nice to be able to show that particular district. So again, I'll click outside the spreadsheet, out in this gray area, and I'll go in and I'll select one piece of data, and it highlights all of them in that data series, and I'll then do a right click on the surface, and I'll do select data. Now it has, in this dialog box, it has brought up series 1. This is the one you have clicked. All the data points so far are called series 1. I'm going to add a new data point, which includes some of the data that I've already plotted, but I want to highlight specific pieces of data, so I'll add a new series. And this series I'll call Beaverton, because that's the school district I'm going to visit. So I add the title Beaverton, so I'll know what it is. Now, this gets a little tricky. On the x-axis, I click here, and I have to go back then, once this little select data source comes up, I have to go back to the original spreadsheet that I've been working from, and I have to find the school district within this data that I want to identify or have it stand out. And here, the Beaverton School District is located right here on row 37. That's where it starts. So I'll highlight the X values only. That's column A for the Beaverton School District. And I'll drag this down until I no longer in column G see the word Beaverton. And there it is. And Beaverton ends in 94. So I will select all the way down to 94. You can't see how it is selected because it's just kind of a blinking line there. I can see it, but you probably can't on your computer monitor. Then I go up here and click the icon that says that's the X values. Now I want to select the Y values. So I click this and I repeat the process. Only this time I think I'll do it in reverse. I'm already sitting at 94. So I'll select 94 Beaverton Y value in the B column and go up to where Beaverton starts, and that was at 37. So I've highlighted that and I click it, and now I'm done. When I click OK, you will now see the Beaverton School District schools that are identified with an X and a Y marker. Let me click one of them, because if I select just one of them and then do a right click and do format, I can actually change the fill. I can change them to a different color. In this case, I'll make them black. And I can also change the marker style. I go down here and click style. It's automatic. I'm going to change it to this little X in the middle. And you can start to see how these data points are changing down here as I do this. And I'm going to make them a little smaller too, so they don't stand out quite so much. And now you can see the district you're going to visit. You can see exactly where all of their schools lie compared to the whole state of Oregon. And I'm going to change the title now. So that I know this is the school district that I'm dealing with. And they could actually hang this chart on the wall. They could frame it and say, these are our schools and how we're doing and which ones we need to work on. And in terms of performance, you can already see that these are doing quite well compared to others that are having that degree of poverty. These obviously need some work. And so you know specifically what schools you can talk to them about, which ones that are below where perhaps they should be. I'm going to save it again, because the next step, sometimes you got to be very careful because it'll blow up your Excel spreadsheet. You have to restart it. What I'm going to try and do is add labels, and I'm using a product from Application Professionals on the web. You can do a search for chart labeler. And this XY chart labeler is a add-in, usually a free app that goes into Excel. And there's explanation how to add it into your Excel on the web. They provide that for you when you download it. I'm again going to identify one of the Beaverton School data points. Then I'm going to go up here to Tools, and I've added in XY chart labeler down here at the bottom. It shows it under Tools. And I'm going to add chart labels. And this will be the Beaverton School District. And I need to select where the data is. And it again brings up a similar little icon and dialog box. When I click this thing, I can then go over to the original data, and I need to select the name of the schools, and they are right in this area, names of the schools. Here is Beaverton School District. Here is the column with schools in it. And I'll start again with 37. And if I miss that, if I get out of alignment, say I get 36, row 36 instead of 37, the thing will report an error, and then it will not start again for me. I'll have to go back and restart everything I've done. And again, the bottom and last school is number 94. It's row number 94. So I click that. It also says, where do you want to put the label? To the right, the left, up, down. I'm going to say to the right. Just make a guess. I can move them around a little bit, but it's a lot of work. It's better to try to get it right. And I click OK, and bingo, the names all start to appear. And they're messy because they're big names. I can shorten the names, make it a little bit easier to read. I can blow this chart up, make it larger. I can click on one of them and move the label around a bit so you can read it. But I'll let you decide that. If you're visiting a district with just 5 or 6 schools, it's no problem. They'll come up almost perfect the first time. But a larger district like this, you get a clump, and it'll take you a little while to figure out how to move them, how to eliminate them, how to change the names. I could actually go into the original data source and do a mass change, and let's say eliminate the word school with a search and replace, eliminate the word elementary and just put in EL. So I could make these names shorter, and they would then be easier to read on the chart and the graph. So those are just some suggestions. I can then, once I get my chart, I can do let's assume I've cleaned it up. I can go up here and I can do a print. And I could send it somewhere by PDF down here in the bottom. I can make a PDF file, give it a name. This is all Oregon schools. And it's Beaverton. So I save that on the desktop. I can put this away, and you can see it on the desktop here that I have just made a chart. Very messy because I haven't cleaned up the titles. But you get the general idea. I hope that saves you some time and helps you in your work and your process of studying schools.